$35 million evaporated from one man's bank account in exactly 8 days, and it started with a single phone call about a red card. According to reporting from PBS NewsHour and ABC News, a World Cup referee reversed that red card decision in the middle of a live tournament, 48 hours after the President of the United States personally called the head of FIFA to complain. BaloGate stayed on the pitch. Norway filed a formal ethics complaint, and Gianni Infantino, the most powerful man in world football, walked away $35 million lighter in the same 8-day span this scandal took to unfold. This is not a story about a football match. This is a story about what happens when the world's richest sports organization hands a sitting head of state the keys to the game itself. Here is why this matters to you, even if you have never watched a single minute of soccer. FIFA generates more annual revenue than the GDP of some small nations, and it answers to almost no one. There is no shareholder vote. There is no independent regulator with real teeth. One man, Gianni Infantino, controls broadcast rights, hosting decisions, and disciplinary rulings. What happens when that much power sits in one office with no one to answer to? According to a formal ethics complaint filed with the International Olympic Committee, it means a referee's decision on the field can bend to a phone call from the White House. Two questions are going to follow you through this entire story. First, how does a private Swiss organization end up more entangled with a sitting American president than most federal agencies are? Second, what did Infantino actually get in return for letting Donald Trump this close to his sport? Both answers involve a red card, a Peace Prize, and a $20 billion deal that collapsed in 96 hours. So how did a Swiss sports federation end up on this kind of speed dial with the White House? The story starts in February 2016. FIFA was not a healthy organization. It was a crime scene. Sepp Blatter, president for 17 years, had just been forced out in the middle of a United States Department of Justice investigation that indicted 9 FIFA officials and 5 corporate executives on charges of racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering. FIFA had reported losses of $122 million in 2015 and $369 million in 2016. Sponsors were fleeing. Into that vacuum stepped Gianni Infantino, a Swiss-Italian lawyer who had spent 7 years as UEFA's general secretary, largely in the shadow of his boss, Michel Platini. Infantino won the presidency in a second-round vote, 115 to 88, after votes from eliminated candidates were reallocated to him. Greg Dyke, then head of England's Football Association, called it a fresh start for the organization at the time. Was it? Look at what he actually built next. Infantino's first mini-revelation as president was not corruption in the old Blatter sense. It was something more modern, the conversion of FIFA from a scandal-plagued bureaucracy into a personal, geopolitical instrument. By 2022, hosting the World Cup in Qatar, Infantino faced intense criticism over the deaths of migrant workers and the country's treatment of LGBTQ people. His response, delivered at a press conference the day before the tournament opened, became instantly infamous. Today I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arabic. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. It was widely read not as empathy, but as deflection, a rhetorical trick that let him sidestep the actual human rights questions being asked. Why does a line like that work on an audience of millions? Because it substitutes performance for accountability, and performance is faster. Reports at the time suggested television directors were instructed to cut to Infantino's reaction shots during matches, turning the tournament broadcast itself into a subtle extension of his own image management. This is the psychological groundwork for everything that follows. A leader who had already learned that spectacle could absorb accountability. By 2025, that instinct for spectacle found its perfect partner. Donald Trump, freshly inaugurated for his second term in January 2025, and Gianni Infantino developed what multiple outlets have described as an unusually close working relationship for a sitting head of state and the president of an international sports federation. In May 2025, Infantino arrived 2 hours late to the FIFA Congress after joining Trump on a diplomatic tour through the Middle East, a delay significant enough that UEFA delegates staged a walkout in protest. What kind of relationship makes a federation president skip his own Congress for another country's president? On December 6, 2025, at the World Cup draw ceremony held at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., Infantino presented Trump with FIFA's newly created first ever Peace Prize, a gold trophy, a gold medal, and a certificate, telling him directly, "This is your prize, this is your Peace Prize." What exactly had Trump done to earn a Peace Prize from a football federation? 3 days later, the London-based human rights organization Fair Square filed a formal complaint with FIFA's own ethics committee, arguing the award was, in their words, in and of itself a clear breach of FIFA's duty of neutrality. Human Rights Watch went further, stating Trump's human rights record did not reflect what they called exceptional actions for peace. Here is your first mini revelation, and it answers part of why this matters today. International organizations that claim political neutrality as their founding principle can quietly abandon it one photo opportunity at a time, and there is often no enforcement mechanism strong enough to stop it. FIFA's own ethics code exists on paper. Fair Square's complaint about the Peace Prize went nowhere publicly disclosed, and 6 months later, financial disclosures confirmed that Trump had personally received $15,000 worth of tickets to the FIFA Club World Cup final, a gift documented in his own annual financial disclosure and reported by CNBC in July 2026. The man being showered with prizes and premium seating was the same man who would soon be placing a phone call that changed the outcome of an actual match. That call is the second mini revelation, and it is the one that gave this entire scandal its name. During World Cup group play, American forward Folarin Balogun received what officials initially ruled a straight red card, a decision that would have suspended him for the next match against Belgium. Then something happened that FIFA's own disciplinary history has no precedent for. What changed in the span of 2 days? Reports from PBS NewsHour and ABC News, both published in July 2026, detail how Trump personally lobbied Infantino over the ruling, and within 48 hours, FIFA reversed course and allowed Balogun to play. Norwegian football officials moved almost immediately toward a formal ethics complaint. Fair Square, the same organization behind the Peace Prize complaint, escalated the matter to the International Olympic Committee's own ethics commission, not FIFA's, accusing Infantino of what they termed a repeated breach of political neutrality rules, this time potentially violating the foundational Olympic principle of political non-interference in sport. IOC President Kirsty Coventry's office confirmed the complaint had been received. Internet commentators, sports journalists, and eventually mainstream outlets started calling the episode by one name: BaloGate, a portmanteau that stuck within days, the way only a genuinely absurd true story can. But the reversed red card was, in the grand scheme of what was happening inside FIFA that same month, almost a sideshow. The real mechanism, the one with actual numbers attached, was unfolding in boardrooms. On Tuesday, July 28, 2026, Infantino announced a plan to sell equity stakes in FIFA's major competitions to private investors, a deal built through a subsidiary called FIFA Forward Enterprise, projected to raise as much as $4.2 billion in upfront capital. Among the investors identified in reporting on the deal was Joshua Kushner, brother of Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of President Trump. What was the sitting president's own family doing on FIFA's investor list? The financial structure mattered enormously to Infantino personally. According to analysis by The Times, his compensation package included roughly 30 million euros, close to $35 million, in base pay and performance bonuses directly tied to the success of this specific privatization project. The backlash was immediate, and it came from an unlikely place. Not fans, but federations. Carlos Cordero resigned in protest. Kevin Lamore, a senior operating official, told colleagues the federation leadership had been, in his word, deceived about the scope of the project. UEFA, Europe's governing football body, went as far as declaring it had lost confidence in Infantino's leadership over the plan, with member nations reportedly weighing an unprecedented boycott of World Cup qualifying matches. On Friday, July 31st, 2026, exactly 3 days after announcing it, Infantino scrapped the entire plan. His statement read, in part, that the project had created divisions that were no longer in FIFA's interest. 96 hours. $20 billion in aggregate deal value across FIFA's competitions. $35 million in personal bonus, gone, the moment the underlying deal died, and an investor list that ran directly back into the Trump family's orbit. Here is where the two open loops planted earlier finally close. How does a private Swiss organization end up more entangled with a sitting American president than most federal agencies are? Because FIFA has no external shareholder, no binding government oversight, and a president whose entire post-Blatter strategy has been proximity to power as a survival mechanism. Proximity to Qatar's ruling family, proximity to Saudi Arabia when it was awarded the 2034 World Cup without a competitive bidding process, and proximity to Trump, who offered exactly the kind of unaccountable, camera-ready validation Infantino has sought since the moment he inherited an organization hemorrhaging hundreds of millions of dollars and a reputation to rebuild. And what did Infantino get in return for letting Trump this close? Access. Political cover during the stake sale controversy, when Trump publicly defended him and warned that removing Infantino from FIFA's presidency would be, in Trump's words, a terrible mistake. A president willing to lobby personally over a red card, proving to every federation watching that FIFA's decisions could be moved by a phone call from the most powerful office in the world, and that Infantino himself was the one holding the phone. The mechanism operating inside FIFA is not unique to football. It is the same mechanism operating every time you watch a supposedly neutral platform, institution, or referee bend its own stated rules the moment someone with enough leverage applies pressure quietly enough that most of the public never notices the reversal happened at all. You have seen it in content moderation decisions that shift right before a major advertiser complains. You have seen it in regulatory rulings that soften right after the regulated company hires the right lobbyist. The BaloGate red card is a small, almost comically specific example, but it is a legible one because a football match has a clock, a scoreboard, and a rule book that either gets followed or does not. Most institutional capture does not come with that kind of scoreboard. It happens in language you cannot fact-check in real time, buried in disclosures you will never read, decided in phone calls no one records. According to reporting from PBS NewsHour and ABC News, a World Cup referee reversed a red card decision in the middle of a live tournament, 48 hours after the President of the United States personally called the head of FIFA to complain. Folarin Balogun stayed on the pitch. Norway's ethics complaint is still pending in front of the International Olympic Committee as this story is being told. And Gianni Infantino, the most powerful man in world football, is still in his job, still $35 million lighter, and still, according to every outlet that has covered his relationship with Donald Trump, closer to the White House than any FIFA president in history has ever been. The next time you watch an institution insisted answers to no one but the rules, ask yourself whose phone call it would actually take to change them.